And welcome back. I'm Kim Gilman, and I am here teaching part two, finishing up and casting off on your homemade cardboard loom. But for anybody who is joining for the first time, um, once I show you how to end your weaving, I can backtrack during these 2 hours and show you how to make your loom and get started with your weaving. It's a very simple process and doesn't really matter if you see the end before you see the beginning. You can start your own loom once the old students have seen how to finish off their projects. Is there anybody from last week who needs a little bit longer to weave before I demonstrate?
No.
Okay. Oh, you got a heart on yours, Robin.
Oh, how
This
cute.
is awesome. Um, is there anybody else who'd be willing to just hold up their pouches so that we can all get a look at what everybody is working on? I never got any further than my demonstration loom last week. Oh, Jocelyn's is a beautiful blue. Lily, that's lovely. Beautiful, beautiful textures on that
Yeah.
yarn. Love
Fantastic
that
to work
yarn.
with.
All right. So for finishing off your loom, and I'm going to spotlight the demonstration so that we can all see. For finishing off your loom, we're going to pretend that I've woven all the way to the top, which I haven't. But you're going to weave as close as you can get to the top of your loom where these dashed lines are. And when you just can't get your needle to go back anymore, you're going to bury your last tail, which we covered in last week's class, um, just by trimming it or weaving backwards. Gonna bury this tail.
And what about the first tail?
And you can either bury that first tail or what I did with my first tail, because there's frequently more than one right way to solve a problem. You can weave it, you can put it into your needle, and you can just sort of pull it up this way so that you're burying it upward along a warp thread, or you can snip it off even. So I just pulled it out, and here was my tail, and I could just snip it off even, or you could weave it backwards. So there are 3 different ways that you could deal with it. And for these little tails, I'm just going to snip them off evenly. So assuming that you've woven as far as you can up to the top, the next step is to take the bag off the loom. We need to get the cardboard out. And so we're going to start with the tip of our needle, and you're going to stick it under these little dashes up at the top. And this is where I frequently find that I start to manhandle my loom. And this is where the wear and tear happens on my looms. Because if the string is being difficult, I just bend my tabs back. You're going to slip those loops, get your needle under it, and slip it off and drop it off the back. And you can see my warp threads are loose on the back. And you're going to do that with all of your warp threads, first on the front, and then you'll flip it over and do the same thing on the back. And then the trickiest ones are the little tiny ones on either end. And they take a little bit more finagling, managing, bullying. And sometimes I just resort to bending my cardboard down and pulling it off with my fingers, because it can be tricky getting the tip of the needle under that fine that fine loop. And sometimes it's just a little easier to bend the cardboard and slip it off. But having done the first side, you're then going to go back and lift your warp threads off the second side. Now my pouch is falling apart because I didn't finish weaving it, because I did not have a lot of free time this week. What with teaching and all, and my students all being very caught up with working with clay and glass. Supervising that's exhausting when you're teaching middle schoolers. And you're gonna knock all of these little loops off, and then you'll be able to pull your bag downward. Just press it downward and pull it off. And this is where you might need another person to help you to detach it, to get your cardboard out. But what you'll end up with is you'll end up with your bag that will come off the loom. And here's one that was woven in advance. Your threads are going to cover the bottom. And what you might find is that it's a little bit loose up here where your loops came off the board. And so what we do to redistribute the thread, and you can see my loops are naked up here, is you take the bottom of your purse and you grasp it firmly, and you're gonna smack your bag just viciously. Take out all your frustrations and smack it against a tabletop or a sofa or the arm of the chair. And it's going to help even out the weave. And you can see on the top of this bag, you can barely see my warp threads up here. They're little sort of gold warp threads, but they're barely visible because once you've smacked your bag around, they migrate upwards. And you can turn around if it's very tight up here, you can smack it the other way. And it just helps to even out the distribution of your threads, and it'll hide a multitude of sins up here.
That's the Klingon way of doing it.
And that's really all there is to it. And then at that point, you can attach, you can leave the bag as it is, or you can attach a handle that you've braided, or you can get out a crochet hook or a knitting needle and a length of yarn and add a crocheted or a knitted cord or loop around the top, or leave it plain. Here is my sad half finished pouch.
Oh. I'm sorry, I'm going to be laughing at that image now for days.
The sad half-finished pouch, or me grasping the bottom of the completed one and just banging the heck out of it.
Beating it on the table. Yep, that is so funny.
It's very cathartic. Yes, percussive maintenance.
So I've got a question. I started at the top and loosened the loops.
Uh-huh.
And then slide it off.
Slide it off.
Okay.
Just make sure that those the two tiny loops that are over on the very sides, make sure that those have been detached. And then you're going to just slide it off. And if you've woven very tightly, you might find that you need to have another person grasp the top of the cardboard, and while you're pulling back on the pouch in order to get it out. And I've had bags get turned inside out with the violence of the pulling. And you just turn them right side in, grasp them at the bottom, smack it around to even out the weave and bring it up to cover the ends of your warp threads, and it's all fine and good.
I need to weave up a lot of these bags just so I can beat them on a table. That is too funny. And yet, when you think about it, that is the simplest way to hide those loops.
It is, and it works. It's just enough. It's just enough violence to get those threads to march up to the top and cover your loops, and even out all of the pressure that you've put on the layers below. Just even it out.
Oh, maybe I should mute that before I get mine.
I see smacking. Lily is smacking.
Smacking.
Let
It's
the
off.
whacking and the thwacking begin.
It's off.
Like a Polaroid.
Oh my goodness. That is a lovely big bag too. Perfect.
I can't see anybody else. Maybe I should change the screen. Hmm.
Okay.
For those of you who are joining us for the first time and have to delay the delights of taking your bag off the loom and thwacking it around your house on furniture, husbands, pets. Mine is making they can hear you, honey. Mine's making noises in the background. Anticipating the thwackings.
Oh, hey, how are you doing, Paul?
People say hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
If you're joining us for the first time, you can get your supplies together to make your loom. You just need a piece of cardboard, a pencil or a pen, a ruler, and a pair of scissors. And I will be demonstrating how to make your loom, and then we'll warp your loom shortly after that.
If you want you, Coco, you can get up there.
So by a show of reaction emojis that can be found on your bottom right-hand bar, if you are ready to see how to warp a loom, would you give me a thumbs up? Nat's ready. Lee's ready.
What?
Deborah, are you watching or are you going to make one too? Okay. Didn't get a reaction from Deborah, so I'm going to give it a minute just in case she is chasing down some cardboard and some supplies. I found a interesting skein of sari silk that I bought years ago and thought, oh, I'm going to weave with that. And then it got lost in my stash. And so I was going through my stash. I found it and figured I'm going to weave with a little bit of sari silk to make a quick pouch. And I'm kind of liking it because even when I pack it down, I'm still seeing the warp threads. And so it's giving me a very weaverly kind of look to it. Usually I don't see my warp threads. And Deborah, if you are back and can hear me, are you going to weave or are you just going to watch? And you can type in the chat if you can hear me. Oh, okay, a little bit of both. Perfect. Are you ready? Or do you need a minute to get some supplies together? Okay, excellent. Let's make a loom. All right. So we're going to start with a piece of cardboard, and the size of the cardboard is really up to you. I tend to do a lot of looms that are 4 inches by 6 inches because that's the size of an average cell phone. And if you are using the metric system, about 10 centimeters by 15 centimeters. But really, you can make this loom any size or any shape that you want. They can be long, they can be small. Whatever your end size is, that's going to be the size of cardboard that you are going to cut. And so I'm going to give everybody a minute to decide how big you want your loom to be and to cut your cardboard. I like, my favorite kind of cardboard is a thicker cardboard like you might get on the back of a sketchbook or the cardboard that comes in men's shirts, piece of poster board, but you can also use a piece of corrugated cardboard if you want to. But I tend to like to use it going with the corrugations running side to side, but it works either way.
I found with the cardboard that I use with the corrugation going side to side,
Uh-huh.
it kind of crimps it a little while you're working with it and trying to weave. So you have to keep pressing it down to make sure that both of the strings from the top to the bottom, back, side, and front, are the same, that they don't wiggle around and become loose. So you end up with one side having more string length to weave through than the other.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And that I like the non-corrugated cardboard best, but you can use what you have. It's a pretty friendly project. Even a cereal box will work. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take out our ruler and we're going to be marking. Oops. We're going to be marking down from the top and up from the bottom a guideline that tells us where to stop cutting so that we don't have uneven notches. And so I like to mark down about 1/8 of an inch. Or about 2 to 3 centimeters. And you just mark 1/8 of an inch down from the top and connect your dots. Or if you have good eyes, you can eyeball it. And mark the bottom as well. And when I teach, I like to label the top of the loom so that when I'm demonstrating, you know where I'm referring to. So I always mark mine on the top.
You said that's about Oh, you're doing, okay, never mind, never mind.
Okay. Now our next step, and I have a labeled loom, although I don't know if my writing is big enough to see in the screen. The next step after you've marked your notch stops at the top and the bottom is you're going to start measuring across and putting a mark at about every 1/4 of an inch. Going all the way across the top. And then flipping it over and doing the same thing on the bottom and making a mark every 1/4 of an inch. Ta-da! And if everybody who is warping a loom would just give me a thumbs up when they finished marking your tops and your bottoms. We have one more set of markings that we're going to make before we start cutting our notches. But I don't want to get ahead of anybody. Oh, we have a feline visitor. There's something about an open computer or an open book that just attracts cats. All right, the last step for marking our loom before we start to cut is the distance between where our first string is going to go here, which is a 1/4 of an inch from the edge, would be added to where our next string on the back would be, and that would give us a 1/2 inch gap on the side.